What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Process Potables. Got a bunch of last out media guys. Got my boy Jeff from the Potables Power Hour. Got a whole slew of guys in here so we can talk some NBA trade deadline, everything going on around the league, all the news or lack thereof, I guess, at this point. So we're just going to make a bunch of shit up. But I'm joined by Rob Manoff, the official Sixers beat reporter for Last Out. I got Bobby, who you may know from the Potables Power Hour test run stuff, does the, what is it, the radio. Right the radio. I almost said right the room, and I'm like, that's not right. So I'm just going to let him say it.
Yeah,
Right the room pod.
With Manoff and our other guest, Matt Maratea.
Okay, so we got Matt with us as well, and again, like I mentioned, Jeff, who is a contributor with us for the Potables Power Hour. So if everybody wants to go around, kind of introduce themselves, plug a a Twitter or a social or whatnot, let's go. Let's get it started.
Well, I guess I'll start us off. It's your boy Bobby Dubs. You can find me on Twitter at YoungSpud1385, or you can type Bobby Dubs right in that little search window. You will find me. You can also look on Instagram at Robbo the Writer. As always, I'm always covering the Eagles, Sixers, anything Philly sports. That's what I do, so that's where you can
find me. What's up, man? I'm Rob. You can find me on Twitter at ManoffRM. Anything lastoutmedia.com. You can go to Sixers page. And if you want to find me on Facebook, it's Rob Manoff. And if you want to find me on Instagram, it's Manoff52. But find me on Twitter, ManoffRM. I'll be talking about Kyle Lowry until 2:59 tomorrow.
That's right.
Exactly. Put it into the air, Manoff. You got to put those vibes out there.
Hey guys, it's Jeff Taviano. You can't see me now, but I'm here by audio. You can find me on Twitter at Jeffrey Taviano. I'm always talking Philly sports. I'm always talking sports gambling, giving your picks. Anytime you want to talk sports, I'm your guy.
And lastly, we got Matt.
Hello, and I am your wacky, goofy, inflatable, random voice guy. Hey, everybody. I'm Matt Maratea. Last Out Media. I cover hockey. I cover boxing. I jump in and out of everything. I've been on team No New Sixers, so we're definitely going to talk about that today. Much to everyone's chagrin, as they say. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Untapped, because I know we got beer people here.
That's right.
At mmaratea22. That's MMARATEA, and the number 22. And I'm ready to crack one and get this thing going if you guys are.
Fantastic. I'm definitely ready to get going. And so I'm going to just try to lead everybody into everything. If you haven't read it already, there is a piece over at Last Out Media that a few of us contributed to, talking about our predictions and what we want to happen, what we think might happen, and what we think the Sixers need to do, biggest areas of importance and things like that. So I want to go around the room here and kind of, rehash some of those things, but maybe with a different spin on some of it as well. So we're going to start off with basically at this point, if you're following along, there really hasn't been anything breaking from the deadline so far. Nothing from Woj, nothing from Shams, really just, kind of killing the vibe here. But, I think we're going to be in for a pretty hectic, what do we have left? I guess 12 plus 5, so like 17 hours to go at this point. So there's still plenty of time for anything to happen. Maybe we'll get lucky and something will pop up on my Twitter with Woj notifications while we're going, give us something to talk about. But at this point, for any rumors you've heard, read, anything you've seen, whether you believe it or not, and Bobby, I'll start with you since you're here in the room with me, so we can hash it out. What is your gut feeling based on everything that's going around on what ultimately happens with the Sixers right now, as far as do they get anybody? Who is it? At the very least, give me positional upgrades or moves if you don't really want to go down the list of specific names with, again, the fact that we don't have a lot of info at this point.
Yeah, I think they go another guard that can facilitate, but also can shoot. Somebody that can knock down an open shot. Somebody that is not afraid to take a last shot with the clock winding down in crunch time, which it really is a Kyle Lowry type player. But they're gonna have to, if they go that route where they completely shoot for the moon and try to get the best available person, which would be a Lowry. They're gonna have to also empty out their pockets. Rumor is he's looking for at least a 2-year, $50 million extension if he signs anywhere, whoever picks him up. So they're going to have to worry about that, eating that number, whether it's worth it for 2 years when a guy who tomorrow will be 35 years old. So that's going to be on them. But I think somehow, some way, I don't think they stand pat. They somehow, some way get another person that can handle the rock and shoot a quality percentage from the field as far as the jump shot goes. So you can see Kyle Lowry, if they put all their eggs in one basket, if they go for it. But you can also see other guys like a Markin, and maybe you see if you can get a J.J. Redick, who looks like he's getting a buyout. And even though, it seems like he may go to Brooklyn, maybe you can coerce him to come back here. But I think you definitely need a shooter that can handle the rock and that also can facilitate from time to time when need be to take some of that pressure off of Ben and the other guys you got running the point for the team.
Rob, what do you think? Hop in here.
So, I don't know if you've been following me. You know, it's pretty clear that I'm big on the Kyle Lowry trade. There's a lot of reports and a lot of stuff coming out there, like saying that they're not that interested or Miami's really pushing for it. I don't know how much I believe it. So personally, I agree with Bobby. I think they're gonna go for some kind of guard. Maybe Alonzo Ball. They've been speculated to be in on George Hill, Kyle Lowry, something like that. And then I would maybe see them get a stretch big type, maybe like a Bijalik. I'm not gonna say his name right, but Belicia from Sacramento, or I don't really think they'd be in on marketing, especially because you'd have to pay them next year.
Yeah,
but
I saw something about that, about marketing, but I don't know if that's actually going to happen or whether somebody was just talking trash.
I read something today. It was apparently Markkanen and Ball for each other and some type of package.
Yeah, I heard that like a couple weeks ago, actually. They said the Bulls were interested in Lonzo, so that could make sense.
Matt, you're on team No New Sixers, which we'll have our own discussion on that. So I'm going to go ahead and not give you the floor at this point. And Jeff, why don't you jump in and give us any thoughts on what you're thinking so far with the very little rumors and information that we have at this point still?
Yeah, well, right now I'm not on team No New Sixers. However,
That's right.
I believe
Nobody is.
that's going to wind up happening. I wouldn't be surprised if the Sixers stand pat. Of course, I would love to have a guy like Kyle Lowry or even Norman Powell. As far as you mentioned, Bobby, J.J. Redick, I don't know if that's really an upgrade for the Sixers, especially because at this stage in his career, I think his numbers are right on par with Furkan Korkmaz. I think statistically at this stage, they're in the same ballpark. And as far as Lonzo Ball, do the Sixers really need another guy that's going to average, 10 to 13 points a game? He's not a great passer. He's very good on defense, and defensively, I think he'd fit in. But
I'm sorry, wait, who's not a great passer?
Yeah, that doesn't seem to make sense to me that Lonzo Ball isn't a great passer.
You're saying Lonzo's not a great passer?
That's one of his strong points.
I don't buy that at all.
Me either.
I think defensively is his strong point.
I would argue that his defense is great. That doesn't make his passing bad.
Exactly. And he'd also be very expensive to resign as well.
Yeah, I mean that's the case I think you have, but again, as far as I'm concerned, yes, you need to think about beyond this year, but at the same point, there's no denying that this team has a super legitimate chance. And while I don't agree with Matt's No New Sixers philosophy, I have consistently said that I believe regardless of what deals they make, or even if they ultimately can't find one, that I still believe in the team as is constructed. I'm not going to sit here and say they can't win as they are. I just think that, there's definitely upgrades you can make, and whether they make the biggest one or not is fine. If you say, oh, I don't want to go get Kyle Lowry because I think I'll have to give up too much, and he's 35, and I don't think I can re-sign him. That's all well and good, but that doesn't mean that because of that I don't want to entertain the idea of Wayne Ellington or George Hill or even Lonzo or anybody like that. That is not the splash that Lowry is, but is definitely still. Even if you say as currently constructed, they have a 20% chance to win, George Hill on this team for any number of guys who aren't playing significant minutes right now, or, some second round picks or something like that, has to at least make 20% into 21, 22. I think you can make the case that it's more, but I don't think you can make the case that it's not at least, 1%. And if we're talking about winning this year, which I think we all are pretty gung-ho on, then I'm taking any marginal impact that I can. So I want to do that, all costs factored in anything like that. So let's give Matt the floor, and let's kind of move on to the idea of no new Sixers. And so, right. Yeah. But so we'll let Matt talk it out. But I guess to everybody else, whether you agree or not, we've all obviously explained that we have ideas of what we think they should do, what we want them to do, et cetera, et cetera. But like I just kind of talked about, talk to me about your thoughts if for some reason we get through this trade deadline with the roster intact, and how you're going to feel about coming out of this with essentially the same thing. We'll let Matt start it off, since I didn't want him to talk about it first while we all got to get giddy about what we hope happens.
It's not that I'm against the idea of the Sixers making a trade or making, maybe a minor move to fill out the bench a little bit. I just believe, especially in the game of basketball, you have to have such cohesion, with your units, with your players. And I think we've seen that sort of in spades from the Sixers this year, more so than any other season in recent and maybe even a little bit longer term memory. And I would hate to, do anything that might disrupt that, even, if it is a positive, even if we are striving, for something else or something greater. And also, I like the idea of being diametrically opposed to what the Nets are doing, right? With the Nets basically, constructing a whole new team as the season went on, or a whole new starting five. Let them do what they do with their patchwork of psychopaths over there. We have Joel Embiid, we have Ben Simmons, we have Tobias playing as good as he's ever played. And we know what everybody else offers. We know what Danny Green brings to the table. We know the defense we can get from Matisse, right? We know when Seth Curry is healthy, he's going to be able to be a shooter. And we all are super high on Shake Milton, I believe. I think it's something that's not worth tampering with, especially considering I see this as the very opening of the Sixers championship window. I'm just very hesitant to make a big deal or, trade any pieces. That being said, I do think we are one goofy Euro away from taking this thing to the house. So that's who I'd be targeting. I mean,
and that's
in the article, I think I cited Bogdanovich.
Yes, from Atlanta.
Yes.
So
I think
I want to jump in, Matt. I mean, I agree with a lot of what you're saying, and I don't think I don't want to speak for anybody else. I'll obviously let them, but I will say that I don't think that any of us are talking about any kind of significant uproot of anything. We're not talking about any of the main contributors really even stepping out of roles. I mean, I get Kyle Lowry would be the one move that I guess could cause some sort of disruption, but I also think that when you talk about a guy who's a 35-year-old champion veteran who is known for, one, being good at pretty much every aspect of the game, like above average at every aspect, plus has the intangibles like toughness, taking charges, being that kind of pest, annoying guy as well. Like, I feel like even that being like a bigger type of move, I don't expect him to come in and have much of a chemistry issue. I definitely think there's something to be said about the Sixers approach versus the Nets approach. And I agree that, they are kind of like a the sum of the parts does not equal the whole, I guess you could say. Like, you look at the names and you're like, wow, but you put all that together and it's like, are you sure though? Whereas the Sixers, you may look at, the semblance of the semblance of the parts does create the whole project or the whole product. And you're seeing that now, being, what are they, like 5-1 since Joel went out again?
Yeah.
They're hanging on to the number 1 seed with Simmons missing time, Seth Curry missing time, Joel Embiid being out. Like, it's incredible. So there is no denying the chemistry that the Sixers have. But let's say, it's not the Lowry move. Let's talk about anything, more minor. Let's say a guy like, Bogdan Bogdanovic, whatever the fuck it is, takes minutes from Furkan Korkmaz, and that's like one of the only things that they do. Do you think that's really going to cause any kind of disruption with, this train rolling along? Like, I don't really think that it is. If you bring in a guy like George Hill and, he runs the backup unit a little bit and Shake gets the playoff ball, and that's really one of the only minor changes you have. Do you think that's that much of a disruption? Do you think that's really going to mess with chemistry that much? I don't think it is. So I think there's a lot of moves they can do that don't really upset what they're doing, but still provide marginal improvement. I would be opposed to moves that I think disrupt that. One of the names that I think has been mildly talked about that I'm hoping nobody here would have any interest in, and I haven't really seen a Sixers fan that I trust say they want him here, but I know he's being shopped, is a guy like Lauri Markkanen. Yeah. Lauri Markkanen would be a guy that I don't want anything to do with. I don't think he would come in and like fit with the vibe, fit with the culture, for several reasons, and I don't think he's that good either. Like, that's the type of move that I'd be like, what the hell are they doing? It's also a move I trust Daryl Morey not to make, so he hasn't been here long enough to necessarily know exactly how he's going to approach this, but I think we're all taking his track record into consideration and just believing that what he's going to do is not going to be that large of a disruption, but will still provide a net benefit without really upsetting the, what's going on right now. What do you think, Bobby?
I think you're right. It's like you don't have to, let's say, turn over the apple cart by making some big splash. We're not, I'm always a big purveyor of history. We're not asking to go like 0-1 when we had a window to maybe win a title and you made a big move and you moved Theo Ratliff for Dikembe Mutombo, and then we all saw how that took off. That may not be the case now where you have to make such a big move because like you said, they're keeping pace right now with guys being in and out of the lineup, people being hurt, people missing time, where literally like one small move might suffice and keep them afloat until they get all their horses back. Like, I don't mind a George Hill, somebody like that, just stepping in and being able to play a role while you're missing maybe a Seth Curry or somebody. So I think a small move could benefit this team. It does not have to be major. It's not like you should have your heart set on Kyle Lowry or bust, and that's the only way this team can make a finals. Like you said, like Brooklyn, yeah, it looks nice on paper, but you never know with that. I haven't seen Kevin Durant play basketball in several weeks. I have no idea what he's going to play when he comes back. Kyrie he's a basket case. Every other day you could lose him for personal reasons, whatever the hell that means. So
it's his birthday, bro.
Oh, today's his birthday. Is that why he didn't jump?
That's not what they're saying, but that's what it is.
It says personal. So apparently he had a birthday party. But I'm just saying, like, you never know with that situation. And just because, like you said, it looks good on paper means it's going to work. How many times have we seen these teams that look like super teams come together, and that first season, for some reason or not, it does not work, and that team doesn't get as far as you thought they would? We saw it last year with the Clippers. Everybody had them in the Western Conference Finals. Everybody nailed it to the wall. It's going to be the Lakers and the Clippers in the Western Conference Finals, and they didn't even make it. You cannot make championships on paper no matter how much you try to. So if you stand pat with what you got and you're still able to be successful, you do that. If you can add one more small piece that make you even better, like you said, even if it's just a marginal difference better, then you go do that. So, like, I'm with Dan. Even if it's a small piece and you can make this team a little bit better than they already are, which is pretty damn good, then you go do it.
Rob, I want you to jump in, but I got to bring this up because Bobby got me on it. I dug up a stat earlier earlier this week that I really liked, and I don't think got that much attention. And I'm a little salty, so I'm going to tell you guys now and just see what you think real quick. Just keep it in the back of your minds because I'm sure we're going to talk about Brooklyn a lot with Kevin Durant. Do you know Kevin Durant has not played more than 6 consecutive games on the schedule since April 26th of 2019?
Oh, wow.
That's the last time he was able to play 6 consecutive games. Obviously, he missed a ton of time that season. He came back for the one finals game, got hurt in the game, missed the entire next season. And this year, he has never played 6 consecutive games on the schedule. Whether it's sitting out 1 or 2 or 3, like he has completely missed stints. And now he's been out for, it feels like over a month. And people think that he's going to show back up and be, a top 5 player in the world. And whether you believed in him recovering from the Achilles or not in the first place, like he's obviously shown he can still play, but there's a difference in being able to get out there and play a couple games and what playoff basketball is going to become. I think that that's not getting enough concern from like the national media and people that are super afraid of the Nets. So I just want to offer that nugget as a little, possible confidence boost. But Rob, get in here, help us out.
In KD's defense, though, I think he had like 2 or 3 things to do with COVID this year. Remember, like he was in the game and he was out of the game.
That's true. There was that issue with the testing and whatnot. So that is fair. But they also have shown they're going to rest him, so you don't know what he would have done anyway. But that's a great point. You're right.
Yeah, and he has been dealing with like nagging injuries all season and all. But yeah, as far as like the chemistry thing, and this is what really kind of messed me up. I guess the other day, I think Danny Green's really important to this chemistry idea for them. And I don't think if you add people, it doesn't mean it's going to mess up your chemistry, right? Like maybe like Alonzo Ball, right? You get Alonzo Ball for bench pieces, maybe Tyrese. Who's to say that that's going to mess up chemistry? You know what I mean? Like he might come in and fit in. I think when you lose pieces like a Danny Green, or you not that it's going to happen, like a Dwight Howard, I think that's cause for concern because he's liked with the team. Hold on 1 second. My kid's calling me. Hold on.
All right, Jeff, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I actually think he's hitting the nail on the head right there. And one of the things I was saying was to acquire Alonzo Ball, if it required a player like Danny Green, you're losing a player that has championship experience, which will be big time needed in the playoffs. And we've seen that with the Sixers the previous couple of years when they didn't have that experience and they played against a team that did. It showed. Except for in that situation against the Raptors, I just think that came down to the final shot. But last year, going against the Celtics,
I don't want to talk about it, man.
Not bring that
yeah,
up.
exactly. So when it comes into the playoffs this year, having a guy like Danny Green on the roster, of course, if you get a guy like Kyle Lowry, he's trade bait. But otherwise, I'd like to have that experience there to go into the postseason this year and see what can happen.
Matt, bring it back to you.
I mean, it would just be so weird. It's still weird to me even considering the fact that Lonzo Ball could be a Sixer, especially because wasn't LeVar like one of the main people who was ripping Ben for an entire year when they were comparing him to Lonzo? Even constructing these sentences are difficult for me when it comes to Lonzo. But yeah, I'm also shocked that you, of all people, mentioned Furkan Korkmaz and reduced minutes in the same sentence, Dan.
Yeah. I'm not happy about it, but ultimately it's where we are, and it seems like, people have asked me, obviously being the Furkan guy, if I truly believe that, he would even get run in the playoffs, and my answer would be, if the roster stays as it is, he's going to play. Yeah. He's not going to come out of the rotation, but I definitely think as far as guys that will even see the floor in the playoffs, if you bring in anybody at this deadline, he's probably the first axe, because you figure Shake's going to get run no matter what, and like Dwight Howard or maybe Tony Bradley's going to get run. One of them. I don't think they're going to upgrade that position. So you could convince me that Tony Bradley could actually play his way into that role, that maybe even you do use both of them, depending on the situation. So that's fine, whatever. You'll have them both available. Beyond that, I'm not really sure. Like, Mike Scott's probably not, and I think that's definitely like an area that they need to upgrade no matter what. And then you need another guard, and I think they're going to at least get one of those two. So I guess if it's not Furkan, it's Mike Scott. As I wrote in the piece that last out, that I believe those are the two upgrades they will get no matter what. You can convince me of a couple different people to fill those roles, but while I am definitely in the camp that Kyle Lowry is more likely to go to the Heat than here, I don't think that Mike Scott and Furkan Korkmaz will both be seeing playoff minutes. I think it's like 95% one of them is out of the rotation for either a trade acquisition or a buyout candidate at least, if not both. It breaks my heart. It's unfortunate, but while Furk's had plenty of pretty awesome moments this year, he's also been really, really bad at times, and even I can't keep the bid up for some of that. It's really tough. Just kind of checking in on social media and what's going on Twitter, especially with Woj and everything, and also with the Twitch. Just want to shout out Liberty Line, who came in and chatted it up with us a little bit on Twitch. Love those guys over there, so make sure that you check them out and all their articles. I know they do some video streaming and stuff as well, probably on Twitch, so check that out. Nothing really much coming from Woj. I didn't see this earlier, so this was news to me, but Oladipo sat out tonight. They said for personal reasons, so
there you go with that.
Yeah, that definitely has to be the trade talks, because we know that's been a thing. We know Oladipo turned down an extension from the Rockets, so clearly he has no interest in being there. Woj said 2 hours ago that the Rockets continue to be engaged on several fronts in trade talks for Victor Oladipo. So he's definitely on the block. So I want to ask everybody, as being pretty much one of the only names that definitely seems likely to move. We'll kind of work back. So I'll start with Matt here. What are your thoughts on if the Sixers were to make any kind of deal that would bring Victor Oladipo here?
I mean, I really like Oladipo as a player. I think he wants to go somewhere where he can stay. And I get the feeling that it's coming down to Lowry or Oladipo in terms of Miami. And I don't want either one of them to go there. But I really do like the way Oladipo would fit with the Sixers. I'm just not sure what they would have to offer, because it's not going to be as high as making a deal for Lowry, but that's the other thing.
We could talk about the practicality of it. Let's just say it happens. What are your thoughts if they get him?
I mean, I'd be pretty shocked, but I'd be pumped. I think he's a guy who has a lot more than he's shown this year.
Jeff, what do you think if Oladipo actually became a Sixer? Yay, nay?
Yeah, I'm all for it. Anytime you can add a former All-Star who can also play some defense, especially with the Sixers. I mean, that's their mainstay this year is their defense. I think that is an automatic boost to the team. Depends what you have to give up, of course. But if you're just saying, hey, hypothetically, throw him on the team, I'm all for it. And I feel like most Sixers fans would be accepting of that.
Rob?
Well, this is awkward.
I don't like the guy at all.
No, Rob, I'm with you if you're going alternate here, so I'll just give you that confidence boost right now.
I don't want him anywhere near the Sixers.
Me either.
He had those 2 good All-Star years, and then that injury is something serious. But I don't know. I know the Sixers would be a contender, and maybe that changes things, but I don't know how much he's actually bought into anywhere he's been.
I agree.
If you remember, before the bubble, there was reports coming out of Indy that he basically was like, yes, I want to be here. No, I don't want to be here. Yes, I want to be here. And he was just flip-flopping. And he also makes $20 million, which I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure Danny Green would be in there for a salary match.
Yes, I'm pretty sure about that too.
So, but because if not, they would have to send back like 5 players probably. But whatever.
It would take Danny Green for sure. And the Rockets, I think the Rockets would want that so they can flip him for another asset, which they absolutely would do. So it would make a lot of sense for them.
Yeah, I don't think so. Like with the way he's been playing and some of the things, that you don't know if he's going to be committed or not. Plus losing Danny Green, I don't think that's a good combination for this team going forward.
Rob, I'm with you 100%. I think Oladipo falls into the category Matt was talking about, of those guys that would be like a disrupting acquisition. The difference between that and some of the others, though, is I think like his would be really bad, because I agree. I give him a lot of credit for really finding his way in Indiana, and the injury has done something to him. I don't know what it is. I don't want to be the guy that speculates too much, but since the injury, something's going on there. I can't really blame him for not being all in Houston with how bad it's been there. Like, I get that, but I also think that he's one of those guys that is like really concerned about his next payday, and that's not the same kind of mentality I want coming here when we're all in for a title, because you can't be out there concerned about your next check, about your role, about your minutes, about getting injured again, any of those things. Like, we need people here that understand what it takes to win, that want to win, that's their goal. So even like, if you ask me today, who would I rather have for the next 3 years, like Victor Oladipo or JJ Redick? Like, I would want Victor Oladipo. He's a significantly better player. He's younger, whatever. I don't think anybody would argue that. But if you're telling me for the rest of this season, who do I want? Like, it's JJ Redick by 1,000 miles, because I know JJ Redick wants a ring. I know JJ Redick at this point in his career will accept the role that he's given. And I also think it's just a better fit anyway. But like, that's kind of the difference in what we're talking about here, is like, on paper, Victor Oladipo is a better player. If I turn on NBA 2K, Victor Oladipo's probably got a higher overall rating. But for this team, with all of us pretty much in agreement that even as constructed, they're title contenders, I don't think that move is worth the detriment it could potentially cause. I definitely hate it if it involves moving Danny Green, and that's the worst part about a lot of this, is I hate any move that involves moving Danny Green, including Kyle Lowry. But I think Kyle Lowry is the only guy that is potentially available that actually could offset the loss of Danny Green. So it's the only reason I would kind of listen to that. What about you, Bobby?
Yeah, I'm of the mind that, like Matt was saying, it's like, oh, if they got him, oh, that'd be nice. But I'm not going to beat down the walls in order to get him here, because, like you said, it does create kind of a bad situation as far as the team goes. Because I think, like you are kind of intimating that at this point in his career, he's not a guy that's going to be coming in and being able to take a role where maybe he's the third or fourth option on a team. Because, I mean, after that little shine he got in Indianapolis, his next spot where he's going to stay a while is the spot where he maybe wants to be the guy. He got this feeling that, I could be the guy. I was an all-star. And you come here and tell him to be like, all right, you're going to be a supporting role. You're going to be a supporting character. We'll call your number when you need you. That might not bode well for him, and then you get attitude issues, and then you get a whole situation that really isn't worth it. Like, bringing in a guy like that might not be worth it when you look at what his role on the team would be and what he's looking for in a role right now in this part of his career. Like you said, he's looking for big money. He's looking for a role where he's pretty much the guy, maybe even the sidekick or whatever. But the third, fourth option is not really something he's looking for. And if you bring him in to do something like that, it probably won't work out.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I have a big problem with it. I'm surprised. I mean, it's good we got a little mixed bag here, and everybody's got good points. And everything I said, I stand by, but he's also, it'd probably be the Al Horford effect where, like, if it happens, I'll talk myself into it. Yeah. At least for a little bit. And then, if it goes south, then I'm just going to look back and be like, I was right. And I'll pull up the clip and show it off and be like, hey, look, I was right. But
receipts.
There will definitely be a window where I just completely convince myself that, he's the missing piece. Because at this point, like, I'm just starving for anything. So that's very real. I did mention, kind of the idea of let's look less at specific players and look at roles like on this team and what we think, either will happen or what we need the most. So, Jeff, let's start with you. Ignore specific names or anything. Look at the Sixers as far as they're constructed now, and give me like your top two, if not three, in order. Biggest needs as far as roles. So obviously that could be like starting point guard, backup center, backup stretch four, whatever you want.
Well, starters, I think we need a 3-point shooter. Just because you can have nights Danny Green can make 6 for you, but he can also go 1 of 10 like he did against the Knicks. And I think when you have that, it comes down to the playoffs when you can't really afford to have those kind of nights. That can really be costly. And right now the Sixers don't really have a guy other than Furkan, who's very inconsistent, to fill that gap. So if Danny Green was struggling, there's really no one else to jump in there and make those clutch shots.
Or Seth Curry.
Seth Curry too, but Seth Curry, I mean, he's had a great start to the season, but after he missed some time due to COVID, he came back struggling a bit, and now he's missing time now. So we don't know what Curry we're going to get when he comes back. As far as the bench, maybe add one more piece. The bench isn't going to see that much time in the postseason. I think really it's just going to be coming down to Shake. Matisse is going to get some time defensively, and of course Dwight Howard and maybe even Tony Bradley. But other than that, I really don't think you need to add much to the defense. I mean, we're looking at a number 1 seed Sixers team right now. So whatever we do, we don't really want to mess up that chemistry that we have. And I know a lot of people are taking a look at the Nets and saying, oh, this powerhouse. Well, this powerhouse, the starters haven't played together hardly at all. And, we all saw the lack of chemistry when the Sixers had Butler, and they only played, 11 games during the regular season together, and they looked sloppy at times, especially in that Nets series. So we might see that again with the Nets with this team, so which is another reason not to panic if the Sixers really don't do much at this trade deadline.
Matt, top 3, top 2 to 3 positions needed to be upgraded on the team.
Well, I would agree that guard is an area of need. I know I wasn't in the original piece, but Austin added to our trade piece, and he was talking about a shot creating ball handler, and that's what the Sixers need now. It's what they've needed in the past. It is what they will come to need tomorrow, and a 4 really, maybe even a stretch 4, that type of player, someone who can be Mike Scott but be better than Mike Scott, which we all love the guy, but
right,
you don't want him on the floor in the playoffs ideally at all.
Rob?
So I think their biggest need and what they'll go for is point guard. Obviously they've been tied to a couple of them now. So I think, and I've been saying it for a while, they need a good guard, especially one that can pass and shoot a little too. I think they can unlock Ben a little more with that. And then one of the good things about getting a guard or a point guard or somebody that can run with the second unit is you don't necessarily, in my opinion, have to go crazy looking to upgrade Mike Scott. He'll probably be put in a deal, so you put somebody in. But come playoff time, you're going, 8 or 9 deep? If you go 8 or 9 deep, you don't have another power forward in those 8 or 9. So you'll probably put Ben or Tobias at the 4 for the whole game and stagger them. So
I love
could
that
they
point.
still? Yeah, so I think getting a guard makes that stretch 4 a lot less needed. I still think they might go for it just in case they get into a situation where they kind of need a taller, or they go small ball technically, and they don't want Ben and Dwight out there at the same time. But I personally, I would think they're going after a guard, somebody that can distribute and create a little.
Bobby, what do you think?
Yeah, I think they definitely are going to go after a guard. I mean, like Rob said, they could go stretch 4 or somebody to back up that position, but I think a guard is definitely what they need because as constructed, when you look at that starting lineup, you go. I mean, they really don't have a pure point guard sitting there in the lineup. You go in two guards, and then Ben Simmons is primarily the guys that can handle the ball. So you want to get a point guard out there that can also handle the ball, distribute, and then score points when you need them to score points because you're not going to be able to always depend on Joel Embiid or Tobias getting that medium range jump shot or being able to get in. You need a guard that's confident enough to, if they're giving me space out by the perimeter, I can pull up and take this shot and get us in an easy bucket. Like we've seen so much with the way they're currently orchestrated of Ben being the primary ball handler, getting the ball out by the elbow, and then he's driving in all the way to the basket. And maybe there's a kick out there or not, but it doesn't really work. And then they're only getting one possession to try to score a basket instead of or one shot rather to on each possession, and that really doesn't help you offensively. So yeah, they need a point guard, a ball handler, somebody that can score, somebody that can shoot, somebody that can make their own shot if need be, and that can open up the floor for so many different things.
Yeah, I love Rob's point about basically Ben Simmons and Tobias being able to fill that stretch role, and I think that's something that's not talked about enough. Is it's a credit to Ben Simmons is the fact that he gives you so much roster flexibility because he can do so much and he can play a lot of minutes too. Like him and Tobias both play a ton of minutes, and we know like Tobias is an Iron Man. Like Tobias can play 38 to 40 in a playoff game if you need him to, and give you pretty much the same level of production throughout, which is another thing that he doesn't get enough credit for amongst so many other things. But I'll try not to just completely obsess over Tobias Harris tonight because I've been doing it for most of the season already. But yeah, the guard position is definitely what scares me the most, and that's why, again, Lowry is so enticing, but even, Lonzo, George Hill, anybody like that really just seems like it would be such a big help. It would definitely take a little bit of the strain off of what you need out of Shake Milton, especially if, the guy that comes in can be somebody that lets Shake play off ball, because I think we've seen how good Shake Milton can really be as a scorer, and I think one of the, to his credit, he's done everything asked of him this season. But I think one of the things that has, when you've seen him struggle, is just the responsibility of having to kind of run that second unit offense and be the initiator, facilitator, and scorer all at once. It's a lot to ask of a guy who was playing in the G League basically 2 years ago. Wasn't this high prospect or anything, and you've been really fortunate to get what you've gotten out of him. But they're asking a lot of him, again, on a team that we all believe is a title contender. So I believe Shake can be a bench piece on a title contender. I believe he can definitely be, like a 6th to 7th man on this team very, very effectively. But just, giving him a little bit of relief and taking a little bit of responsibility off of him, I think will do so much for this team. And again, I don't think it'll be that big of a disruption, because I think that just bringing in somebody just to initiate the offense, and even if it still ends up with getting him the ball and letting him cook like they already do, it's just a little bit different when you get to get in motion, get going through some screens and stuff, and get yourself a look rather than having to do all of that work on your own. So I think that would be a huge upgrade for them. As much as I really want a stretch kind of big, whether it's a 4 or a 5 off the bench, just because it's a little more, today's NBA-ish kind of thing. If I can only have one move, I'm taking a guard, and I'm taking a guard that is more of a facilitator, playmaker type than I am a scorer. I'm fine with Shake as a scorer if I can get a guard that helps him just play that role even more. Our boy Austin Krell, I actually tweeted an hour ago that while we all knew that Seth Curry was questionable tomorrow night with the ankle, apparently he tried to go last night, but they kept him out as a precaution. Also says that Danny Green is questionable with a hip injury. You think that's a real thing, or you think that's just some trade deadline lingo?
I think it's real. What's the point of keeping him out of tomorrow night's game?
I don't know.
If the deadline's at 3.
It's true.
So I mean, hey, he's questionable, he won't be here. Like, but, yeah, I don't think it doesn't make a lot of sense. It'd make
I'm
more
just
sense
so
if it was
desperate for
like,
something, Rob. Let me have this.
I thought when I read it, I thought the same thing.
It's the most
Very
like
first thought
uneventful
was like, oh,
deadline at
shit.
any point right now, man. I need something. I need something so
It's
bad.
questionable with an outgoing flight. That's what he's
Yeah.
questionable with.
He's questionable. He's looking for a ride to the airport. He just doesn't know if he has it yet. He's not sure if what is that thing called? Like I don't know what it's called. So the jokes around.
Maury just dropped him off at the airport Marriott and told him to wait there.
So let's try to go to some of these names. You know, we've talked about Kyle Lowry. I think he's really probably the biggest name that could be on the move. Give me like I think the easy way to put it is like, there's Miami, there's the Sixers, there's, I guess, staying in Toronto, and then there's the field. So I'll start here, and I'll just tell you, split that up to 100%. So if I have to break that up, I think it's like 50% he ends up in Miami. I'd say like 30% that he's here, 10% Toronto, 10% the field. Bobby, what do you think? Kyle Lowry.
Yeah, I think I would go. I think it's about 40% Miami. I do think there's a possibility they just give him the money in Toronto and let him finish it out there. So I'll say 30% Toronto, 20% us, and then it would be 10% the field.
Rob?
If that math adds up.
I think it's 65% Philly, 35% Toronto, and he'll be on one of those teams after tomorrow.
Wow, so you have 0% to Miami?
Oh no, I'm sorry. My bad. 65% Philly, 35% Miami. He won't be on Toronto tomorrow.
Okay. That I can accept that. Matt, what do you got?
I have 65% Miami. I've got 25% Philly. And then I've got my final
10%.
10%?
Yeah.
LA.
Which LA?
The Lakers.
Ooh.
The Lakers are always in everything.
They are. You're not wrong.
Can't rule them out, especially with the injuries they've had.
Jeff.
Woj said the same thing.
I have 50% Miami, 40% Philadelphia, and 10% nothing gets done, and he stays in Toronto.
Okay. All right, so I mean, we're all pretty close there. I think we all pretty much are pretty confident he's not staying in Toronto for the most part. So we all have that.
How do you guys feel about Norman Powell?
So I forget, it might have been Trill that said this. I forget if it was Trill or somebody else. I'm going to credit Trill. It's definitely not my own thought, but maybe it wasn't him. But that it kind of feels like the Norman Powell news, it almost seems like because we know that Toronto is definitely leveraging specifically Miami and Philly against each other for Lowry, that Powell's going to be like the consolation prize to the other for playing along. And that feels right. And honestly, if I don't get Lowry, but I get Powell, I'm not going to be upset at all.
Dan thinks Powell's the lovely
I want Kyle Lowry. Obviously, I think I've made that very clear for a long time in articles and on this podcast and on Twitter and all that. So clearly, I want Kyle Lowry significantly more than I want Powell. But if I come out of this and Miami wants to overpay for Kyle Lowry and he's not going to do enough for them, so I honestly, like, if he's not coming here, I hope he goes there because I want him to tie up their cap. I want them to, have a 35-year-old point guard that isn't enough to put them over the top. And then if we get Powell as a consolation prize, I'm definitely pretty happy with that.
Especially with him having a career season to go along with Embiid and Harris that are also having the best seasons of their career. I think those three, I mean, of course, obviously with Ben Simmons, but that offense would just be, would be dynamic and it could score from anywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, he's shooting almost 44% from the three.
Matt, what do you think about Powell?
I like Powell. I mean, I obviously like that he's younger. Yeah, and I just looked at him. He's shooting, 43.4% from three, almost 50% from the field. He's balling. And, you know, I, I don't see how it would be bad. Obviously it's, what the price is, but also I've been wondering this about Kyle Lowry, and I wanted to throw this out to you guys. If he does go to Miami and he's like, yeah, this is where I wanted to be, does he become like an all-time Philly villain? Because he's tortured us for years being on opposing teams. And now there's a very real opportunity for him to come here, and he may push his way somewhere else.
There's definitely a world where that narrative exists. It'll probably get pushed, and I wouldn't be surprised if people take it. What I will say, and this is really just personal to me, is like I kind of said, I honestly don't care if he goes to Miami because I'll be upset he didn't come here, but he's not going to do anything for them. So I think that's just going to be bad for him overall because I think he's going to go there to die. He's not going to do any more for them than they already will be, which is probably, a second round knockout. And like, I think that especially the Toronto fan base, because they love him so much, and I don't think that they're, mad if he leaves at this point. I think they understand the narrative of like, okay, well, go home to Philly and try and win one. And I honestly don't think that they would have a big problem with that. I don't really know. I don't talk to a ton of Raptors fans, but I just don't get the vibe that that's a narrative that sours his Raptors legacy. I feel like going to Miami, like, if you're not a Miami fan, most people kind of hate Miami. So I feel like that's one of those things you go there and you probably don't even sniff a ring anyway, that it's just kind of like, dude, why didn't you just like stay it out here then? So that's what I would think about it. And I want to come back to that, but I want to let everybody else answer that too. Rob, what do you think about the villain narrative?
If he ends up in Miami, he will probably say that. Because what else is he going to say? Oh, I wanted to go to Philly, but they sent me here. Like, and then yes, I believe to me, like he doesn't become a villain. But you're right. They would push that narrative. I mean, it makes great radio, right?
Yeah.
But
the word "great" being loosely defined.
If he ends up, I don't think he might be smart about it and say like, yeah, I would have been happy in Philly, but I'm happy I'm here now, or something like that.
Right.
And I don't know. Like he's always embraced the city. He's just.
Yeah, like I don't get the same vibe from him that I did from Kobe, where for a while it seemed like Kobe was like, I'm not from Philly. And then he kind of like came back to it. Yeah. Like Kyle has always been like Philly. Like, yeah, he played in Houston and Toronto, but like that's the league. You don't just like
the trophy
you don't
back
just
to the hood.
You don't just play for the home team. Like that's not how it goes. But he's never, not been Philly. So I really like I'm gonna have a problem with that narrative.
One more, just on the Norman Powell thing. I don't know if this is gonna be a hot take. Or I think he'll be harder to get than Kyle Lowry. I don't know if he'll cost more necessarily, but I think you'll be bidding against more teams for Powell, because even if you're you get his bird rights. So even if you're a middling like team, he improves your teams. Plus you can pay him and still go over the cap. Whereas Lowry's more of just like a contender. Plus, I think it's known they're basically sending him where he wants to go.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. There definitely has to be more quantity of teams looking at Powell for the exact reasons you said, so I can get behind that. One of the lesser talked about things regarding Toronto in general, whether you want to put it toward Lowry or Powell or toward a lot of things, I was listening to as Bobby Marks and Windhorse and eventually Woj came on in one of those like Twitter rooms the other night with that dude Wob, and they were all in there talking all this stuff, and they actually brought like a Raptors fan on, and I wasn't aware of this I guess you call it a narrative, so to speak. It's a very real thing, but I just hadn't really been following it. Is that Toronto seems very unsure if Ujiri's like hanging around there. And one of the biggest things about, what they do now is kind of like the unknown of whether he's staying, because right now he basically has the keys to what happens, but he could also, either not make moves or make a bunch of moves and then just walk either way. So it's like really like a strange situation for the Raptors in where their future is very questionable because they were obviously, they win the title and then Kawhi leaves and now you're stuck in this like limbo where you're too good to tank, but you're not good enough to win. And now the whole direction of your franchise is in jeopardy because you're not sure about the guy who has the keys right now, what his future is. And I definitely like as far as the Ujiri thing, I was always pretty strong in my convictions of thinking that they were going to be a legitimate threat, if not the top threat for Giannis. And now that Giannis is definitely locked into Milwaukee, I think that creates questions for Ujiri because you're not going to be able to grab that star and basically, put the franchise into absolute title contention for several years. And it seemed like that was like Toronto's not going to be a place for every star, but it seemed like a place Giannis might go. Whereas when you look at a lot of other big names that may be like the top of the free agent class for the next few years, you don't necessarily know that they're guys that are going to want to go, to Toronto per se. So it's really strange to kind of look around and say, is Ujiri going to mess with a bunch of stuff? If he thinks he's leaving, what's he going to do if he wants to stay? Is he going to blow it up? Is he going to try and keep contending because, he does stay or because he wants to finish out his tenure with a team not in the basement? Like there's a whole bunch of unknowns that make all of the transactions involving the Raptors very, very complicated. And it was interesting hearing, Bobby Marks and Brian Windhorst talk about it, but I still feel like not enough, people that are really trying to figure out the trade market are factoring that into what the Raptors' like decision making and thought process may be. What do you guys think about that?
Bueller?
I mean, well, I think it's interesting because, like you said, you never know what can happen. You never know if it's just going to be a fire sale and everything must go. And he's like, all right, I'm going to burn this bitch down before I walk out the door. Or it's like, all right, I'm going to leave at least a good legacy, a starting point for whoever comes in behind me so that they can start off at least with something and they're not walking into a dumpster fire. So it's definitely interesting that makes you think about what they'll be willing to take for some of the guys that people are interested in, like Lowry, like Powell. From what I'm seeing, the number of teams interested in Powell is in the teens. So there you have it. Like,
yeah, I mean, there's really no reason not to be, whether you're a contender or you're, it's exactly what Rob said. I mean, there's not really a team situation where you don't want to, at least, explore the market for that guy, whether you have the things to give up or whether you think he's like, enough. Like if I'm Houston, like a team like Houston, like, why am I going to go for like a mid-level kind of guy when I have no high-end power to pair him with? Like I'm just going to pay him a decent amount of money to be on my absolutely terrible team that he won't be good enough to carry, but will eat up the money to possibly get somebody, that could carry me there. But, other than teams that far down, it's hard to imagine teams at least not making calls on him and seeing, because he could help a contender, but he could also be a nice mid to higher level acquisition for a lot of teams. So it's definitely something to keep an eye on. Checking Woj again. There's nothing. I mean, this kind of sucks, man. Like I just wanted some news, but it looks like we're gonna have to possibly just burn the midnight oil and wait and see what happens. I guess with that said, anyone have any final thoughts? Anything else they want to just spit out a take, or any final changes to predictions, or any guys we didn't talk about that you possibly like? I'll throw something out into the universe here. I am much more in favor of Larry Nance Jr. than the Nemanja Bjelica. And I feel like Bjelica is the guy that everybody has talked about more. And it seemed like the Larry Nance thing kind of existed for a day and went away. I'm pretty sure he's still available. Potentially could be bought out, but I think somebody's going to make a deal for him. And I would much rather have Larry Nance than Bjelica. So I guess that's my final take or suggestion to anybody else if they want to talk about it.
I think Nance is going to be too expensive.
You think who is?
Nance.
Too expensive. Okay, that's
Yeah,
possible.
I think they'll end up. It's going to cost something where they could give up for a guard instead. Um, but
Well, I'm not
I
saying I
don't
want him
really
more
have.
than a guard. I'm just saying if it's between him and Bielitsa, I'd rather have Nance.
Well, in general, yeah, but Bielitsa fits in your trade exception. I don't know if Nance does or not, but
He doesn't. I'm pretty sure he doesn't.
so
So that's a
you
good
have
point.
that benefit, and what if it's just like a second round pick? Here's a second, you know. Um, but again, like I'm not too worried about that. Another guy that I think they should go after personally, though, there's two. We haven't talked about them. They're both on Detroit. DeLon Wright and
Wayne
um,
Ellington.
Wayne Ellington.
I mentioned
Yeah.
them both in the article, so I'm definitely in on that. But talk to me about them.
I mean they're inexpensive. Detroit would probably look just for like some seconds or something. Ellington is playing good. Shooting well. I think he's like a 40% shooter. He torched us like twice. So you know, usually like I think early in the season he had like one quarter where he just didn't miss. Um, and then DeLon Wright is another guy that you can kind of plug and play in the point guard position, and it won't cost you an arm and a leg.
Ellington is shooting over 42% from three this season on over 6 attempts per game. So he's shooting volume and he's shooting efficiently. So obviously a very would be a great asset off the bench. I wrote that I would really like both of them. I think you can get one or the other fairly cheap. I think if you go asking for both, it's going to cost you a little more. I don't think it's just seconds. I think they're going to want a player. I don't know if you can get away with that maybe being like a Tony Bradley type where there's upside, but you're not that concerned because you have Dwight as the backup this year. Maybe you're obviously not going to move like a Maxey or a Matisse for that. So
They can't trade Tony Bradley to Detroit.
oh shit, you're right.
He came from there, right?
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't even think about that.
No takebacks.
So I don't know.
Hey,
Maybe
that's
maybe
gotta be one of the best
Furkan.
underrated
I don't know.
trades.
Possibly.
Daryl Morey showed all of his genius with that move.
Yeah, really.
Dude, that move is wild to me. Still, why Detroit did it, and the only thing I can think of is Morey owes them a favor now.
Maybe.
Mm.
Anybody else?
I was just thinking, like, I know, like, we got so heavy on guards or either like a stretch four, but there's also some. If the need came around, like you just wanted buckets or you just wanted flash, there are some wings and other bigger guards that are out there. I mean, I'm just seeing now that Aaron Gordon has pretty much packed his bags and is on the way to the airport in Orlando. So you never know.
I think he's going to Boston, and I'm happy about it. Have fun.
I'm just saying, like, there's also other names out there. Is my whole thing. Like, don't be surprised if like we're dead set thinking, oh yeah, it's definitely going to be a guard or a big or a stretch, and then here comes some slasher or wing player, and you're like, what the hell was that for? What was the point of that? So I just tell people to keep their eyes peeled for somebody in that range.
So I don't know if anyone just saw this, but so Tim Reynolds, who is NBA reporter for AP, tweeted a picture of Kyle Lowry as he walked off the floor tonight, and he's just throwing up double peace signs, looking right at the camera.
Oh wow!
I'm gonna try and get this up on the screen real quick. Give me 1 sec. Oops, that's not it.
There's a video. He looks sad.
There's a video and he looks sad.
I don't know. You kind of see it in his face.
I mean, the only thing he could be sad about is leaving, right? So even though, like,
Yeah.
I don't want him to be sad.
Yeah, he's trending.
If he's sad, I imagine that means he's gone.
I don't know. It's just maybe I'm looking too much into it, but you can kind of just see like there's something about the look he gives when he does it.
Where are you seeing the video?
I just tagged you in it.
Okay. While I try to do that, Jeff, you have any final take or anything?
Yeah, there's actually one player that probably would really cost the Sixers next to nothing and maybe improve their bench just a little bit with some shooting would be Langston Galloway. Um, just because he can shoot. He's shooting upwards of 46%, and he would probably cost, a second round pick, 2 years from now. You wouldn't have to lose any of the chemistry from the current roster. And if you're just looking to improve the bench, if you're going to stand pat at the trade deadline, he would be pretty much next to that, but improving the bench at the same time.
All right, I'm gonna try and pull this video up real quick. Just gotta make it okay. So for anybody who's still with us, here is Kyle Lowry walking off the floor.
Yeah, he definitely looked down in the dumps.
All right, so he's walking out the tunnel.
Did they lose again?
No,
No,
they
they won
won.
by
They
like
smacked
30.
Denver, I think, didn't they?
Oh wow.
Oh yeah, he does look kind of sad. He does not. The picture made him look like he was pretty happy, but the video is definitely a different
He's
story.
definitely dejected.
He's sulking, bro.
This is
Doesn't he kind of always look like that?
Yeah, to a degree, but after the game that they had, I'm not so sure that would make a whole. I feel like he'd be a little bit happier, man. That's tough. That weighs on my heart a little bit, man.
like you want the guy, but damn, if you
Yeah.
don't want him to be
They
looking like that.
yeah, they beat the Nuggets by 24, man. They routed them. Blew up my fucking parlay. But
I know
it's
we're
fine.
kind of caught up on the idea of a Kyle Lowry to Philly reunion, but I think my under the radar thing could be another reunion of sorts. What about somebody like Josh Hart from the Pelicans?
Oh, I love Josh Hart, but I
He's
haven't
a
heard
guy
I
on,
haven't heard anything about him really being shopped that much. I feel like he's like always subtly in it, but for a guy that's not that big of a name, it seems like there would have been more talk about him being available, and all I'm really hearing is about mostly Lonzo out of them and like a JJ buyout. So I don't know if that's just him not being considered like worth giving that much news to, or if he's not actually available. But he's good because he's like one of those, like a jack of all trades, a master of none, which is enticing because he's young and talented. But at the same time, and especially coming from you, Matt, I'm intrigued because I feel like he doesn't do enough of anything to fill any specific role on this team. That I don't know like whose minutes he's taking. I'm not sure if he's a good enough shooter to help our shooting, if he's a good enough defender to be, any better than what we're putting out there. I don't know if he has any one particular skill that I value enough over, while everyone, especially off the bench, has their flaws. I believe that each of them has a specific skill that they're significantly better at than Josh Hart. Shake with his ability to score isolation, Furkan with his ability to hit threes, Matisse with his ability to defend. So, I think he's like probably more well-rounded than any of them, but I don't think he's better at those three specific skill, elite skill than any of them, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, he's a guy I like a lot in terms of the idea of lineup flexibility, and
Sure.
I think he is a good enough defender that he can defend a little bit bigger than he is. And I'm all about versatility, and I also kind of want someone on my fantasy team to finally be a Sixer.
There's the agenda I was waiting for.
Season, so.
No, he's definitely that Swiss Army knife thing, but it's also like it's a Swiss Army knife with a bunch of tools that you're like, what do I use these for?
Exactly.
It's like this thing does a lot, but does it do anything I actually need it for? Or is it just like this is good to have just in case? Like, would not mind him, but like it's another one of those. I forget who I even likened it to earlier. Oh, I think we were talking about like JJ and Oladipo. It's one of those same things where like. Do I think that Josh Hart's a better player than JJ Redick at this point? Yes, but who do I think helps us more this season on in the short term? I think it's JJ Redick. So I'd rather get JJ on a buyout than give up anything for Josh Hart if that's like the conversation, which it wasn't, but that's just like my hypothetical around it. But he's definitely a guy that I root for and a guy that I'd love to have here. It'd just be fun, but I'm not really sure he fills any need. And at this point, like, I only want to make moves that I think fill those specific needs, because I am with you as far as not throwing out the chemistry, not just, doing stuff to do stuff, and I believe in the team as it's constructed. So that's an interesting one, though. Anyone have thoughts on Josh Hart besides me? No. Okay.
Not really. I don't think he's in play at all anyway.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I think we probably would have heard his name more, but you never know. Especially with the Pelicans, you really never know, because they do some weird shit. And it seems like they're always just kind of in like salary dump, figure something out mode. And fortunately for them, they have Zion, so they're gonna get away with a lot of really dumb roster mistakes for a while. And if they can just put something okay around him, like I love watching Zion play, man. I can't believe he's that good that quick, man. He's a monster. But he's not available, so I guess it's not relevant. All right, well, I think that's a lot. I think we made the best of a lack of news and stuff, and had some good conversation here. So, again, for Rob, Bobby, Matt, and Jeff, I'm Dan. Make sure you check out all the Potables social media, which you can see all over the place here. Give us a follow on Twitch, all that stuff. Make sure you're following everybody here on Twitter. They've been, we've all tagged each other in the tweets and everything, so hopefully you're able to find that. Or if you follow any of us, you'll probably see everyone tagged in the stuff. Make sure that you're following Last Out Media and checking out all the posts there from all of us writers and everything there. And yeah, trust the process. Let's go get somebody. Let's go win a chip, baby. I mean, I don't give a shit who it is. If they keep the roster, fine. Like, I just want a goddamn championship, man. Matt mentioned, to him this is the start of the window. I'm not necessarily there. I don't know if I believe the window's that long, but I think we all agree that the window is open right now, and I want to seize it. I want to seize it right now. I'm willing to give up pretty hefty amount of future potential for just one right now. If the Eagles taught me anything, it's that the one will carry me for a pretty long time. Because contrary to most Eagles fans right now, like, I'm still good. I'm still vibing off that straight. Super Bowl. I don't give a shit.
They got to win another game as far as I'm concerned.
I'm not one of those guys that's already like, oh, people said they would sell their soul. Now, no, I sold my soul. I'm good. I'm chilling. I'm so good. So. I'm kind of there with the Sixers, but there's definitely a little bit more optimism as far as their ability to maintain this a little while as well. So I get that, but yeah, thanks everybody for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Thought this was awesome. It'll be up on YouTube, and I think it stays on Twitch as well. If you only caught parts of it or want to give it a rewatch, or it'll probably be irrelevant in 2 hours, if not sooner, with something that'll probably fucking break now that some of the games are ending and whatnot. But obviously, Last Out and Process Potables are places that you can go to get any updates on things that do happen, and everybody here will probably be writing stuff up about it. And also tomorrow night, I'll be recording a Process Potables episode with Marty Teller to recap everything that happens. We'll be recording right before Sixers-Lakers, so by then we should have a pretty good idea of what has or has not transpired for the Sixers, and get to talk about what we think. So always love having Marty on, an incredible recurring guest for us. So thanks, everybody. Trust the podcast, and we'll see you later.